One of the greatest mysteries in the world is the Bermuda Triangle, a large area in the Atlantic where planes and boats mysteriously disappear without a trace. There have been thousands of stories to come out of the triangle in attempts to explain its strange phenomenon, but none offer concrete evidence. But you may be surprised to know that the Bermuda Triangle isn't the only crazy, mysterious place on Earth. Join us as we have a look at places that are just like the Bermuda Triangle. The Dyatlov Pass. If you wandered around the darkest parts of YouTube for long enough, you have undoubtedly come across the story of the Dyatlov Pass. Going on a camping expedition after graduating college with some of your best friends probably sounds like a great idea, and this is exactly what 10 students from a polytechnic university did in 1959. On the morning of February 2, 1959, the group of students set out on their hike, telling their friends that they would be in contact by the 12th. When the call didn't come, they sent out a search party over a week later, and it would take another 6 days before they found the first signs of interaction. As they walked along the path that the students took, they came across their tent, which had been ripped open from the inside. They also found almost all of their belongings along with their clothing. To the right of the tent, they saw footprints leading away that appeared as though the students were barefoot. As they followed the footprints, they began to find bodies, and about a mile from the tent, they found the remains of a fire, along with the first 2 bodies nearly naked, only in their underwear. As they continued to scour the scene, they noticed a set of 3 more footprints which led back to the tent, and 3 bodies which were spread about 150 meters apart. The furthest body was 630 meters from the tent, and the other 2 students fell well before that. The remaining 4 were found months later buried under just a few meters of snow. However, unlike their friends, it would seem that they died of hypothermia. Many of them had severe skull and chest fractures, while one was missing her eyes and her tongue. The coroner would say that the fractures could not have been dealt by any kind of human, and were far too specific to have a product of an avalanche be involved. The students also had strange brown and orange tans to their skin, along with discoloration in their hair. But what baffled investigators the most, perhaps, was that there were no other tracks leading to the bodies other than those of the students themselves. The official cause of death in the coroner's report would be an unknown compelling force. And to this day, almost 60 years later, the scene remains unsolved. The South Atlantic Anomaly. In the South Atlantic regions, including much of South America and parts of South Africa, there's a belt of cosmic radiation that causes severe interference. This is called the Van Allen radiation line, which is a product of the Earth's magnetic field, holding onto charged particles from solar winds and other cosmic radiation. These zones in which the particles float are called radiation belts, and in the case of the Earth's belt, they're called Van Allen belts, as they were discovered by James Van Allen. These belts of radiation never truly touch the Earth, but they get as close as 120 miles away. The location where the radiation is closest is called the South Atlantic Anomaly. For years, there have been numerous technological failures, things simple as a compass, to technology as complex as the International Space Station. Many ships and aircraft that pass through the area have allegedly gone missing, and because of the technological interference in the area, many of the aircrafts and ships are never found because technology is needed to search for them. One of the more recent aircrafts to go missing was an Air France Flight 447 in June of 2009. That's the flight that went missing where everyone thought it would be hilarious to make insensitive jokes about the show Lost and how they wish they were on the flight so that they could live on the show. If those people were actually on the flight that day, they would have likely died, much like the 228 people that were actually on board. Flight 447 allegedly passed through the South Atlantic Anomaly and experienced a technical malfunction, one that would cause the pilots to lose their bearings and ultimately crash. The magnetic interference is so great in that area that even the Hubble Space Telescope doesn't record while passing through the field. Astronauts on the International Space Station also do not perform spacewalks, as the radiation causes visual disturbances and often manifests as shooting stars. If a radiological or magnetic anomaly like this existed in the Bermuda Triangle, there might be some scientific or statistical merit to the alleged disappearances that have taken place there. But even if this were the case, modern ships tasked with going through the field would likely experience minimal interference. Remember, the South Atlantic anomaly covers a very large portion of Brazil, and there are not an inordinate number of technological meltdowns in that country. Technology that would experience the greatest amount of interference orbits around the Earth, while the South Atlantic anomaly doesn't have as many supernatural stories surrounding it. It does have a legitimate explanation for the disappearances in the area. The Devil's Sea. The Devil's Sea is sometimes referred to as the Bermuda Triangle of the Pacific. The reason you probably haven't heard about it is that usually it's only referenced in Japanese culture, as it lies just off the coast of Japan, 100 kilometers south of Tokyo. Much like the Bermuda Triangle, the Devil's Sea is surrounded by stories of ghost ships disappearing, crewmen, time lapses, and disappearing vessels. One of the more eerie stories to come out of the Devil's Sea deals with a government research vessel that was sent to explore the area. The vessel's name was Kaio Mary No. 5 and was manned by 31 crew members. On September 24th of 1952, all communication with the captain and crew were lost. Over the next few years, 7 more small boats would go missing in the same area that the research boat had gone missing in. Even unto this day, there are few explanations as to what happened to these boats, and the most likely one is that the least one of them was destroyed in a volcanic eruption, one that coincided with their voyages. In addition to the disappearance of these ships, the area has a history of causing technical malfunctions, and to this day, even military captains are hesitant to sail into the waters of the Devil's Sea. Point Pleasant, West Virginia. West Virginia can be a scary place. The name Point Pleasant might ring a bell because it was the backdrop for the popular Richard Gere movie The Mothman Prophecies. The movie was a dramatic retelling of the events that took place in the town of Point Pleasant from November 1966 to December of 1967. In that time, there were nearly 1,000 citizens who claimed to see a large man, or a creature, over 7 foot tall lurking around the city. After some time, the creature was nicknamed the Mothman. This phantom creature would terrorize the small town for over a year. People claimed to actually see him standing outside their windows, in dark alleys, and roaming throughout the woods late at night. The final sighting of the Mothman would occur on December 15th of 1967. That day, the famous Silver Bridge would collapse. It has been alleged that the Mothman was seen standing on the side of the bridge just moments before it fell, and people driving on the bridge during rush hour reported to have seen an abnormally large man, dressed in strange gray clothing, standing at the end of the bridge, almost as if he were about to jump. The collapse of the bridge would kill 46 people, and the Mothman was never seen again. Bridgewater Triangle, Massachusetts. The Bridgewater Triangle is a 200-mile expanse that lies within the southeastern part of Massachusetts, just a few miles south of Boston. But what makes it so interesting, perhaps, is that it's also famous for supernatural, extraterrestrial, cryptozoological, and just plain old murderous activity. The Bridgewater Triangle first came to media attention in the 1970s when people hiking throughout its forests claimed to have seen reptile-like birds resembling pterodactyls. Just a few years later, another man hiking through the woods claims to have seen a savage hound so large that it was able to eviscerate 2 of his horses. On another occasion, a different group of people claimed to have seen cult activity in the area. The group claims to have been hiking through the woods when they would stumble upon a clearing with around 20 mysterious individuals dressed in old-fashioned robes and clothing. The group was so unnerved by the sight that they quickly decided to move on before they were noticed. As they took their first steps to walk away, the strange group of individuals all stood up and looked toward them. This would cause the hiking group to go into full-on panic and to sprint until they were able to exit the woods. When they reached the edge of the woods, they claimed that they could hear a loud wailing coming from inside of the forest, and many of people who have hiked through the forest claim that they're unable to get cell phone reception, and in some cases, they've barely even been able to get their satellite phones to function. Over the decades, there have been many disappearances in the Triangle, and this wouldn't be the first time that Massachusetts has endured a spell of supernatural hysteria. Might we remind you of the Salem witch trials? The San Luis Valley in Colorado. You might remember us mentioning the San Luis Valley in southern Colorado in a previous video. This was a place where a cattle rancher came out to find almost all of his livestock had been completely murdered, skinned alive with their organs almost surgically removed. Well, perhaps the most interesting part is that many of these animals were bled dry. This would become a center of alien conspiracy theory, as no clear explanations could ever be given as to why livestock was being slaughtered in mass numbers with barely a trace of blood. In one case, the only evidence that was found were 3 concentric burn marks near the corpses of the livestock. UFO enthusiasts believe that these are actually thrust marks from an extraterrestrial spaceship. There are also trace levels of radiation found on the sites of many of these massacres. Such an enormous massacre would have surely caused some kind of noise, right? Well, wrong. Almost all of the farmers who have experienced this phenomenon have not heard a single noise the night before. And in one of the more stranger cases, a farmer said that for some reason he slept for over 24 hours during the incident. In the years following the death of their livestock, many of these farmers have been unable to yield any kind of crops or harvest from their land because it had been drained of all its nutrients. One of the most eerie things to come out of the entire fiasco was an overarching sentiment among the farmers that they felt as though they were being watched. And for some reason, they could tell that whatever was watching them was not human. Could these be the ramblings of a farmer? Or have the farms been marked and there is actually someone watching them from above Earth? This has been a look at some of the more strange places from around the world that are just like the Bermuda Triangle. But which ones did we leave off of our list? And have you ever been through any of these areas? Let us know all about it in the comments below, and thanks for watching. In 1881, trade between England and the relatively young United States was bustling. Of course, this was before airplanes or massive freight ships, so the trade was conducted on tall ships, really big ones. One of these tall ships was the Ellen Austin, an American ship that frequently went back and forth between New York and London.